Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a couple of people did ask hand history questions. This one actually came publicly via YouTube. And By Joy Joseph prefaces the hand by saying, I have a question on turn play. When deep stacked, how should one play an overpair on a dry board with a 3-bet preflop? Okay, so this hand is from a live no limit game. He said there's a mix of regs, action junkies, nits, and randoms. And in this exact situation, there's an open, there's a call, here decides to squeeze, and everything looks really good so far. I might make this just a little bit bigger, maybe 45 or 50 bucks strictly for value, but overall not going to complain too much. We get called by the solid winner, and we end up going heads up to the flop. And Hero describes the solid winner as the kind of person they have a little bit of a back and forth, and the solid winner will buy Hero drinks occasionally, that sort of kind of relationship. And here we go to the flop of Jack 7-5 Rainbow. Hero decides to lead for 75, totally standard, ends up getting called, 3 on the turn, and Hero decides to check. So at this point, Hero says that he checks the turn with the intention of check calling, and he's putting the solid winner on a range of like medium pocket pairs up to queens, something like ace jack suited or king jack suited possibly, and maybe even like a suited jack double gapper, since the solid winner might think the Hero is trying to steal preflop. Well, first and foremost, I kind of disagree with that range, but let's just assign it for a moment. If we do assign a range like that, there's a lot of Jack X in there, which means there's a lot of second best hands that will probably call another bet. And if we stick them in for like $1.25 now, we can probably stick them in for a cry call on the river, and we're still going to be annihilating that range on most rivers. So because of that, let's just bet strictly for value. Now, in the real world, I'm probably not going to assume something like that unless I've seen it before, because he did call roughly 10% of the effective stack preflop, and he called it without closing action. So there's still players behind him that could back raise or just straight up 4-bet in our face anyway. So because of that, I don't assume that someone who I classify as a solid winner is going to have a range that wide. I think their range when they cold call a 3-bet preflop, a squeeze especially, that it's going to be pretty pinned down to a very, very narrow range, and I'm still going to be value betting against that because I think a lot of it's going to sit squarely on queens. Jacks, yes, could certainly be in there, but those combos, there's only 3 of those versus the 6 of queens. That still makes sense, so I would just continue betting for that rationale. Here, given the thought process and the range that you gave, again, I would just continue betting. The turn is a really, really important street. I think a lot of players overlook it, and they take these turn checks in situations where a turn bet would be infinitely better. And again, given the range that you assign, the thought process, you really should be betting this turn strictly for value. So as played, solid winner checks behind on the turn, river fills the flush, but again, pretty brick card. Hero decides to check. And again, if I'm going to check the turn goes check, I'm just going to value bet the river and hope that he has something cry call-y, something like 10s or maybe Jack X, if that's really, again, something that you're assigning. I'm probably not. And I don't really think he has like ace-king type hands, partially because I have 2 kings in my hand, but also because I just don't think he plays it this way. So I think that when he checks the turn behind, he's looking at like a single pair that he hates life with, so you should just value bet all day against it, and I'd probably bet something like 175 and just try to get straight value from it. As played, solid winner bets for 100. I would probably just call this, but again, I don't think I would ever really take this line. I think this line was way too passive, and we're just leaving way too much money on the table. In this exact situation, unfortunately, we end up running into a flush, which is absolutely bizarre. But again, I'm going to then reclassify who this player is. I don't think he's a solid winner. I don't think a solid winner is going to call 10% of their stack preflop with Jack 10 suited. I don't think they're going to do it not closing action. I just don't view this person, in this line especially, as something that is done by a good player. So because I'm just going to view this as someone who just has a weird dynamic with me, wants to mess with me, and that's okay. It's just going to change the way that I think about his play in the future. And again, this gives even more validity to betting that turn strictly for value. If you think that he's calling you with things like this, and again, I wouldn't think someone who's a solid winner would, but if I've ever seen this before, bet turn all day for value. Again, get it in on a river. Yeah, whatever. He ended up hitting a flush this time, but in the long run, we're going to absolutely annihilate him and just hit so much value in his face. So by Joy Joseph, thank you very much for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these types of videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.